Good morning and welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. If you're watching us live, thank you for that. If you are watching or listening to us later, we appreciate that as well. We do mention that we upload these shows to www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. You can check them out there. Also want to remind folks that we are covering the coronavirus as much as we can. It is at www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. That coverage is free. Usually we do have a paywall on the website. Right now, the coverage that we are offering is free. Please, we'd appreciate it if you went and checked that out. Looking at your traffic this morning, not too bad. Looking at a nice, easy Friday. Currently I-12 is open. We did mention this week that as the numbers have kind of eased up, folks have started, it seems to be going back to work a little bit. That's anecdotal evidence just based on the traffic in the morning. However, this morning you're looking at only minor delays at 4-H Club Road, River Road, and 190. Some minor delays at Range Avenue and 190, but Juban Road and 190, which usually has some delays, is looking pretty clear. So you can keep that in mind. Again, some anecdotal evidence that shows maybe some people are taking Friday off. I don't know. We'll see. It's currently 52 degrees outside. 80 degrees is your high today. So it's going to be a warm one right up until there's going to be some clouds. As you can see, usually it's a little dreary morning. There's going to be some clouds today. We're going to be getting hit with some evening thunderstorms coming in probably 6, 7 o'clock tonight. That's the current forecast. And it's going to drop to 64 degrees. So again, 52 degrees right now, 80 degrees is your high. Looking at some evening thunderstorms, dropping the temperature down to about 64 overnight. Not quite as cold as it has been, but it will be a little chilly. According to the latest figures from the Louisiana Department of Health, the coronavirus statistics in Louisiana are as follows: 22,532 cases, 1,156 deaths, 1,914 hospitalizations on 396 vents. So those last two statistics that we've talked about in the past, which factor into the modeling quite a bit, continue to drop. That's a great sign. That is a great sign that we are doing the right things, that we're flattening the curve. Of course, they always knew that the case count was going to go up. Unfortunately, Louisiana has a health problem. We have a lot of underlying conditions here, a lot of folks that just had underlying health issues, anything from diabetes to obesity. And some of those are just not, they're not self-inflicted. We just have a lot of people with underlying conditions. And of course, this, a lot of people want to talk about COVID-19 related deaths. One of the things that has been mentioned to us is that it's a lie. That number is a lie, that, those people, they died of other causes. That's not exactly the case. One of the things that has been expressed by the Department of Health is that these people would otherwise still be alive if they had not contracted COVID-19. And in a lot of cases, it's more that the fact that they had those underlying conditions made recovery from COVID-19 impossible. Or it exacerbated the problem to where they might have something more serious like a stroke or a heart attack. So even if it isn't even if COVID-19 wasn't the entire cause of their death, it is what caused the death, because otherwise these people would still be walking around and living their lives. So it's important to remember that these COVID-19 related deaths, they are related. Otherwise, these people would still be walking around. And of course, one of the things we talked about for weeks was overwhelming healthcare infrastructure in New Orleans. And that wasn't just ventilators, which they have found recently, not necessarily that they weren't the right treatment, just that they might have been applying them too early. But one of the things to remember is that we talked for several weeks, really the last 3 days of March and the first 9 days or so of April, that there was a potential for healthcare infrastructure in New Orleans to be overwhelmed. And that wasn't just ventilators, that was beds too. There's a reason, and they're currently, at the Montreal Convention Center in New Orleans, they had a stand-up hospital for 1,000 patients. There's 125 people in there. So the Department of Health figures that talk about beds and that sort of thing include some of those stand-up hospitals. So it is important to keep those numbers in perspective. A lot of us here in Livingston Parish didn't see it. It wasn't right in our backyard, so we weren't quite sure how to couch those numbers. count yourself lucky. One of the things that we didn't have to deal with was the overwhelming of Region 1, which is New Orleans, hospitals, and those patients moving other places. And please, you're going to have to excuse me. I'm drinking a lot of water today. My allergies, because of the temperature doing this, are just out of whack. So please bear with me today. Now, talking about Livingston Parish, we currently have 136 cases. We do have 5 deaths. Currently, the coroner is reporting 5 deaths, with the common thread in those deaths being obesity, on 402 tests. So please keep that in mind. We do have it here in Livingston Parish. There are people that have COVID-19. There are people that have died from it, or at least had a COVID-19 related death. So please remember that going forward. The paycheck, there was a lot of things that came out yesterday that were very economic centric. Some of it was good news, some of it not so good news. We're going to start off with a little bit of not so good news. Some of you probably heard me say Paycheck Protection, and then I stopped. The Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, which is a small business loan, ran out of money. So the initial outlay was $396 billion. They ran out of that 13 days after the program was announced. So they're going to be trying to put about $251 billion back into the fund. Right now, they're sparring over political differences. That would be the House Republicans and House Democrats. There's a lot of fluff that the Democrats are looking to put in there. Not entirely sure what, not entirely sure how long that's going to take them. Let's just put it that way. But right now they're sparring over that in the Senate. It'll be interesting to see what comes out here in the next 24 hours. Negotiations began yesterday morning. So those of you who did not get money in the first round, that is not a surprise. One of the things that has been floated, especially a lot yesterday, was the potential for class action lawsuits. One of the rules of the program was supposed to be first come, first served. And it's starting to look like that was not the case. The majority of loans went to businesses of $350,000 to $1 million. That was the loan size they were looking for, which looks to be some of the larger employers. As of right now, the vast majority of loans, per some statistics that are coming out, went to larger businesses that were anywhere from 100 employees or more. So most businesses that were smaller than that were left out of that first round of funding. Hopefully they'll get picked up on a second round of funding that will come pretty quickly. There are a lot of businesses that are nervous about the second round of funding. However, one of the things that made the process so slow the first time around was the changing of the guidelines quite a bit right after they first announced the program. They passed the law, and then it took a few days for them to announce that the program was open for applications. Then the guidelines changed once, twice, 3 times. I think it changed up to about 5 times. And several people had to reapply and that kind of thing. So it's, this round should be a little quicker because the guidelines exist, the process exists, and especially a lot of those people probably already submitted their application. So it might just be waiting for the money to get approved. How long that money is going to take, I don't know. I don't have a magic 8-ball. So we'll just have to wait and see. The governor spoke yesterday about a lot of economic, the rollout and trying to get back to work. But one of the first things he led off with, and that we always talk about here, is the continuance of mitigation efforts, social distancing, and the stay at home, so we do not see a spike in cases. Remember those mitigation efforts. Wash your hands for 20 seconds or more with soap and water. Disinfect common surfaces at home and at your office. Control your sneezing or cough with your elbow or a tissue. Don't touch your face. Always remember that one. Wear a mask in public per new CDC guidelines. So, of course, a cloth mask does work. It's just all about protecting your face, both protecting the people around you from your potential particulates. You may be an asymptomatic carrier, or protecting yourself from others. Gatherings of 10 or less, preferably less. Stay home to work. And stay home, only leave home for essential business, which is the doctor, pharmacy, or grocery store. And stay home if you're sick. Now, those are a lot of those are tucked into the mitigation efforts for stay at home. One of the things the governor said is right now, if the numbers continue to improve, you're going to be looking at an economic rollout beginning May 1st. That echoed what the president said yesterday as well. Now, the president said that he's going to leave a lot of these decisions up to the governors around the country because of hotspots. And we'll get to that in a second. But the governor has formed Resilient Louisiana Commission, which is going to be a group of individual stakeholders, including private sector and public sector officials who are going to work together and navigate this reopening of the economy. There's going to be a lot of task forces dedicated to specific industries so they can talk about, as they say, propping them back up. That seems to be the term or phrase people are using. And one of the things that they said would probably be first is going to be expanded health care. A lot of elective procedures that were canceled because of social distancing measures, because they were preparing surge just in case the cases continued to increase and that sort of thing. A lot of elective procedures were canceled or were postponed. Now some of those elective procedures might be becoming life-threatening. So that's one of the things they're going to be looking to stand back up is the clinics, elective procedure places, that sort of thing. So healthcare looks to be the first industry that will be stood back up here in the April 30th, May 1st bridge between the stay-at-home and getting back to the new normal. And we'll talk about the new normal in a second. Dr. Birx from the President's Task Force talked about the new normal yesterday and describing the phases of the economy rollout. So we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about it now because Trump was talking about a phased and deliberate return to the economy. He did say that it will be up to the governors because there are places, as we know, that are worse than others. Obviously, the New Orleans area is worse than most of the country outside of New York City itself. So we in Louisiana are a hot spot. It's something we have to accept and we're going to have to deal with moving forward, according to the governor. Part of this is making sure that, and Trump said this yesterday, is making sure that this is of the benefit of the public health as well as the benefit of the public economy. And he said you can do both. And that echoes a lot of what the governor has said. Representative Steve Scalise joined the governor yesterday and said much the same thing, that this is going to be about lining up the interests of the public health as well as the public trust in the economy to get both of those, rolling in the same direction. Again, these hotspots are we're one of them. But the governor did say that we're going to be looking to roll this stuff out. It's important to note Senator Cassidy and Senator Kennedy have been asked to join the task force at the federal level. Now, just about every Republican in the Senate outside of Mitt Romney was asked to join the task force, but it is important, Kennedy being a small business person, he is on the small business committee in the Senate. He's also a finance guy. And Mr. Bill Cassidy being a doctor, they have valuable experience what's the best way to put it? Valuable experience to offer. Cassidy's hand was on a lot of the CARES Act from a physician's point of view. So talking about that phased approach, and this seems to be a lot of what the local government, that would be the state government, Louisiana, is looking for guidance from the CDC and the federal government as to how we should be enacting this. And of course, Resilient Louisiana, which I also should talk about Resilient Louisiana for a second. One of the things that the governor did say was that this first date of April 30th, May 1st is coming pretty quickly. There are going to be some decisions that he's going to make immediately. He does have that power because of the declared emergency, the declared health emergency. But going forward and for the long term, and even still, he's going to be taking any recommendations the commission makes going into that date. But he expects more of their help to be with moving forward, with standing up individual industries as we get to those, as opposed to sort of that transfer. The governor, the transfer from staying at home, going back to real life, it sounds like the governor has a lot of the similar ideas as what Dr. Birx discussed yesterday at President Trump's task force meeting. So a lot of that is about the phases in which the economy will reopen, and we'll talk about that real quick. Phase one is just a few people getting back to work. The social distancing remains in place. The mitigation efforts stay in place. And if you can work from home, you should. You're going to be trying to get some people back to work. They weren't real specific on what some people means. I'm sure that written guidelines are going to be produced here in the coming days, probably over the weekend, for people to take a look at. It's important to note as well that all of these phases still contain social distancing, mitigation efforts, and testing. So just because we're moving phases, you're going to see a lot of people going out in masks, in PPE. You're going to see a lot of people getting tested for coronavirus, a lot of temperatures being taken as people go in and out of buildings. It's going to be very interesting to see what things look like even just a month from now on May 15th, as we sort of barrel towards this April 30th, May 1st, bridge. There's still a lot of work to be done. So again, phase one is just a few people returning to work. Phase two, features of that are now you're getting to gatherings of 50 people, up to 50 people, not 50 people or more, but up to 50 people. One of the things they said there is that you'll have, remote learning at like schools could still open. And daycares could open back up at that point. We'll talk about some of the things like remote learning in just a second that the governor said about the local response to these things. And phase three is, as Dr. Birx put it, the pre-vaccine new normal, which is, as mentioned, you're going to see a lot of people walking around in masks, possibly even PPE, lots of testing going on, still going to have those social distancing and mitigation efforts. Those just aren't going to go away until a vaccine exists, but going to be trying to get people back to work, reminding people stay home if you're sick, going to be doing a lot of testing. So again, all of these phases contain social distancing, mitigation efforts, and ramped up testing. And, the governor's been talking about ramped up testing for a while, as has President Trump and his task force. So more testing is coming. A lot of folks who may have never had it or been asymptomatic may end up getting tested. A lot of people are going to end up getting tested. So we're going to be seeing where that goes as those phases are rolled out. Again, phase one, few people back to work, kind of ease things back going, propping up individual economies. We talked about it in Louisiana. It's going to be looking like healthcare. Phase two is the features of that is mostly you're looking at gatherings up to 50 people. And that includes schools and daycares. And we'll talk about local response to that in a second. And phase three is the pre-vaccine sort of new normal. That's when you're going to see a lot of people walking around in masks, a lot of testing being done, a lot of temperature being taken, but still people going to work. But still, one of the things the task force did ask is that if you can work from home, especially during phase one and phase two, please do it. Trying to reduce as much interaction and public contact as possible. Please remember those mitigation efforts. Let's toss them in here real quick. Wash your hands for 20 seconds or more with soap and water. Disinfect common surfaces. Control your sneezing and your cough with your elbow or tissue. Don't touch your face. And that's interesting because I know how my camera zoomed in today, so that probably looked real. My hand probably looked real close. Wear a mask in public per CDC guidelines. And of course, that's going to start becoming part of that pre-vaccine new normal. So if you're going out in public, might want to get used to wearing a mask. 10 or less people do a gathering, preferably less or not gathering all at this point. Stay home to work if at all possible. And stay home, definitely stay home if you're sick, and contact your doctor via telehealth. Talked a little bit about education yesterday. There was a few more things that sort of came out of that. One of the important things that we did discuss was that school may look a little different next year. Obviously, we're talking about this phase three pre-vaccine new normal. Might not be a whole lot of gatherings. Might not be. There are going to be new rules in the hallways, new rules in the classrooms. And excuse me, I got to take a drink of this. new rules surrounding schools in general and how things operate. So one of the things that the governor said is that learning has not ended, especially for this year. Distance learning is going to stay in place, whether that's high tech or low tech. Not entirely sure, they're not going to be able to keep it sort of flat across the state, but they're going to try to get everybody to finish the school year by providing education, trying to get these kids ready for next year. The governor also said that the local decision is it's going to be up to local school boards and school districts how they want to handle graduation just as an event and who graduates, as well as those who might be advancing grades and those who might not. It's going to be interesting to see where they land there. Of course, March 13th was the last day of school, so we've had over a month of at-home learning. So it'll be interesting to see how the local school districts are going to handle that. Mr. David Gray is in contact with the school superintendent and the board, trying to see what they decide on how they want to move forward with that. But distance learning will continue for kids in Livingston Parish moving forward. Again, talking about school next year, it is important to note that there are no plans set in stone yet. That would be part of phase 2, and it is important to remember what phase 2 looks like. I mean, we've talked about phase 1 sort of propping the economy back up, starting with individual sectors. Phase 2 is when schools and daycares might be able to continue gathering again, but that could be a while. Obviously, school does not start until August, so you could see phase 1 take a couple of months. We're not real sure. There wasn't real specific guidelines given yesterday. Well, sure, those will be released written so that we can take a look at them and kind of talk about what that timeline might look like. A lot of it is based on your case numbers, your hospitalizations, and your ventilators and your deaths. So those 4 are very dependent on where you end up in phases. And they did say that you have to meet certain criteria to enter phase 1. And if you lose that criteria, then you have to start back over. So it's going to be very interesting to see how people treat the phases as we start to roll them back out. The crew of Denham Springs, Miss Emily Barclay, as the head, donated 3,000 masks to local first responders here in the Denham Springs area. You can check that picture out at www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. One last time, let's talk about your coronavirus statistics. 22,532 cases in Louisiana, 1,156 deaths, 1,914 hospitalizations on 396 ventilators. You've got 136 cases in Livingston Parish, 402 tests have been completed, 5 deaths, with the most common underlying condition there being obesity. One last time with your traffic, it does look like, anecdotally at least, based on traffic, fewer people are going to work here on this Friday. Minor delays at 4-H Club Road, River Road, and 190, as well as minor delays on 190 and Range Avenue. No delays as of right now at Juban Road and 190. It's currently 53 degrees. 80 degrees is your high today. However, it's going to drop to 64 overnight as we're expecting some evening thunderstorms to come through around 6 or 7. That is the current forecast. One last time, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning for the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. Please remember, we are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. It's $7 a month for that. Sometimes you get a bonus 5th edition when we have 5 Thursdays in a month. We are on online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. Please remember, we do have a coronavirus page, which is free. We also have a podcast page, which is free, where you can check out these shows as well as some of the longer form podcasts that I've done with others. Please remember that right now we are on track to get this economy back up and rolling on May 1st and doing it in phases. Please remember to practice those mitigation efforts. Continue to practice social distancing, and the stay-at-home order still is in effect. Try not to have a spike in cases. We don't want to end up back where we were, because I want to say it again. The governor said yesterday that the state had put forth a Herculean effort to turn this thing around, to stop this rapid spread where we were facing one of the most rapid spreads in the world. And we don't want to end up back there. So please remember to keep practicing those mitigation efforts, social distancing, and staying at home until we can get this thing back going under the new normal. This is our last show for the week. We will be back Monday morning. We hope you stay dry this evening. Hope you enjoy your day and enjoy your weekend. And we will see you Monday morning.